Really, we all know construction evolves by implementing new technologies and, new digital procedures. And it came out that blockchain was one of those. Now, blockchain's nothing new. It did start way back 2008 with the introduction of Bitcoin. And really, for the construction industry, we need characteristics that blockchain gives, like transparency, traceability, and collaboration. Really, the things that... Right, we don't need all the... I think that was just sitting there. Oh, that has come off.
You can continue on, Daniel.
I'll continue.
Yes.
Yeah, they look like they're broken.
Yeah.
It's broken, actually.
Right, don't lean on the lectern, yeah.
You just avoid leaning on it. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll have to say, that's the first it's ever happened.
At least you're making it interesting.
Now it'll be memorable. So really, it's putting these new practices into place. What for the built environment do these things mean? The research has shown while blockchain isn't new, it's really in its infancy when it comes to the built environment. But it is starting to grow. Things like supply chain, construction management, procurement, and even into the likes of FM. Now, FM is a very minor thing with it, but it was something we were kind of surprised at when we started doing it. So the methodology for this research obviously started off with a fairly wide-ranging lit review, just to get an idea of what was out there, what was happening. We used the information from that then to carry out interviews. This was a short-term research project, so there was 5 semi-structured interviews carried out. That was then followed up with a questionnaire for the quantitative research. So we had obviously mixed methods. That was all interpreted, and we got the results then. So these are the main things that we found. We just had this nice cognitive map to show. So things like supply chain, smart contracts, that ends up being quite a big thing. Through to project management, health and safety, into dispute resolution and sustainability. This is where blockchain is at the minute. The areas where it is being used now. In FM it has started, but we didn't include it here. Again, these are just a summary of the challenges. And of course, when you introduce something new, the first question now everybody asks is cost. So cost was kind of a fairly obvious one. But scalability and integration, there was a lot of concerns around how do we integrate this? Will it, fit in with our new systems? True, the come up, we kind of expected, but not to the extent to come up. Again, much like BIM in its early days, there's a lot of uncertainty around regulations, GDPR, that kind of thing. And again, cultural resistance, which we're kind of surprised at because we are known in Ireland in the construction industry. We are quite innovative. We do get on board with things. But the research showed there's still some resistance. So I'll look at those a bit more detail. Now, with smart contracts, literature found it to be very transformative, very positive about implementing blockchain within smart contracts. But when you actually talk to people on the ground in the interviews, they were a lot more cautious. There was a very mixed response about that. Things about financial trust, lack of oversight, because obviously with the blockchain things become, much more automated. But the consensus was, smart contracts with blockchain will streamline a lot of processes, but they still need human verification, which kind of defeats the purpose somewhat. And again, concerns about integration with their existing platforms. Now, with sustainability, the big thing with this, yes, it does help within sustainability, verifying supplier claims, verifying enhancing accountability, verifying tracking. But the big thing that came out, it wasn't actually seen as a driver for sustainability. It was seen more as a supporting role, more a supporting mechanism. So, integration with emerging technologies. Again, with the BIM and IoT, things become more self-reporting. They said, evidence showed, yes, it could fit in with these. They're basically doing the same thing. But again, the biggest barrier to this was compatibility between existing systems. And if systems needed upgrading and updating, who's going to bear that extra cost and where does that cost come from? The other thing then, when you're integrating a new system, there's a disruption to the flow. So what happens then, with that disruption? Is it going to make adoption a lot more difficult? Is it going to put people off adopting? So with facilities management, within facilities management, there was a lot more positivity within the literature about it, in terms of reducing paperwork and becoming more digital and more self-reporting. Again, one of the things was with more IoT sensors, maintenance alerts will come up a lot quicker. When that happens and something happens then, that will react in the blockchain and automatic payments can be made. But again, it's still very early. There's very few that actually use it for FM. More are just looking at it and considering it. So again, this was a big thing, cultural resistant, particularly within Irish construction. But they said, yes, we might appear to be slower at adopting new technologies, but that's because there's more regulatory hurdles and there's less support from government. The likes of local governments, local agencies are very slow moving, and that holds construction up. So it's not the actual construction's fault. Another thing came out, senior staff who were accustomed to checking and double checking had less trust in automated systems. They still preferred to have that physical overview. So again, regulatory uncertainty. Again, big thing was around GDPR compliance. What systems need to be put in place to ensure that you're, complying with GDPR. And again, the likes of the Irish construction, you big firms that maybe work in the UK as well, work in the North, work in America. What are you going to do then when you're going across jurisdictions? How do you comply? What legislation do you follow? So, ended up then, there could be a lot of disputes then, and it could be very counterproductive, because construction law really hasn't caught up with all the legal ramifications of blockchain. So we really need legal backing, much like it was with BIM. We need government support. We need some directives from government. So just to conclude, key features, decentralisation. Again, there's more detail in the paper, so I would ask you to go to the paper. Big thing then about cyber attacks. If everything's being automated, what processes can you put in place to avoid cyber attacks? It is beneficial to the supply chain. Payments are a lot more prompt. There's a lot more traceability. There's a better waste management. There's better carbon tracking and carbon reporting. Smart contracts are a key use. They do improve trust amongst shareholders without reliance on intermediaries. Again, within dispute resolution, it was said it was a big aid because, things are recorded, everything's digital, everything's there at the, at the touch of a button, really. And you're getting all your information in real time. So, a few other ones, again, popularity, once it gets integrated in the existing systems like BIM and IoT, it seems to integrate with BIM fairly well. It purports to do all the things that BIM does anyway, increase clarity, increase stakeholder collaboration, increase reporting, increase transparency. Again, the biggest thing was cultural resistance and regulatory uncertainty. But again, if those limitations could be overcome and properly addressed, it could have significant potential within the built environment in Ireland. And that's us.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
I'll
Very interesting. Thank you.
touch that with them.